Welcome back to Newswire here on Sports Grid. Going to be a very busy weekend for Jim Ghazali. I know we're not going to talk a ton of horse racing here on the show. Usually we do with Jim. He always brings something new to the table. I'm sure he's got his sports betting apps open. I'm sure that there's some horse that nobody knows about, that Jim knows about, that he's got a exacta or trifecta box in. I don't know. Maybe he'll one of these days give us one of these and one of these Santa Anita races or something like that. What's going on, Jim? Great to have you back here on Newswire.
Not much, Craig. I'm always happy to talk about horses, but not a lot of news in the racing industry since we last spoke. And, I feel like I've been inundating you with horse topics. So we'll skip that this week.
All right. 1 week off from horse racing. All right. So, hey, look, this is something that's brand new for us here on the show. I know you guys wrote about it over at Legal Sports Report. Nebraska, boy, we don't cover them a ton here on the show. And all of a sudden, there's legislature going on. I mean, Jim, I guess, is it possible that in Q4 ahead of football season or during football season that state legalizes sports betting? Because as I look at this landscape right now, I don't see a single state showing any positivity to get something done before the end of the year. Are they it?
Yeah, perhaps, Craig. And they do have retail sports betting in Nebraska. There are 3 or 4 brick and mortar casinos that do take bets. So the market is relatively small in the grand scheme of things. But what they're discussing now is the potential of bringing sports betting online in Nebraska. And the reason for that is because the governor there has stated in recent weeks and months that the state is in a property tax crisis and they need to raise revenue to reduce that property tax burden on its residents. So a special legislative session kicked off yesterday. They introduced a online sports betting bill, which would essentially just be a small amendment to the current sports betting bill that, like I mentioned, has legalized retail sports betting. So this would bring that market online in Nebraska potentially, and it would create, if passed, a constitutional amendment. So then it would go before the voters coming up in November. So they introduced that bill yesterday. From what I'm gathering, it sounds like some committee hearings will begin after the weekend, and then we'll get a better sense if this is going to be discussed at any length or if we'll perhaps have to wait until the beginning of the new year, in which the governor recently signaled last week that he would be putting forth a priority bill to legalize online sports betting in Nebraska. Now, of course, industry groups want this to be kind of ironed out and put in front of voters in November, so they don't have to wait any longer to raise additional revenues to help with that property tax crunch that the state is currently in. If that does not happen over the next couple of days, then we'll likely see legislation to legalize online sports betting in Nebraska come at the beginning of next year.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see. I know, as you said, they're retail books. You just don't hear a ton about their revenue or finances. Going online is clearly the thing to do. All right, let's get to now some places we do have some revenue sharings in and numbers. We've got Louisiana, the latest sports book there. Jim, you sent a social media post about this yesterday as well. What's the latest there?
Yeah, kind of more of the same like we've been talking about, Craig, over the last couple of months with Louisiana and these parlay bettors. So fiscal year figures, complete fiscal year figures came in recent days for Louisiana. Obviously, that fiscal year running July through June. And the market did show pretty solid growth in overall handle. About $3 billion was bet over the last fiscal year, and that was up 37%. So a sizable increase over the prior fiscal year. Revenue was up as well, 73%, $358.2 million in this latest fiscal year that just ended in June, up from $206.8 million from the prior fiscal year in revenue. And Craig, like we've talked about many, many times in recent weeks and months, the parlays accounted for 70% of that revenue total for the sports books. So as we've seen, a lot of these sports books talk about enhancing their parlay product, better pricing, better app technology, better features, because obviously it is a huge driver of handle. And, of course, as you string together multiple legs of parlays, the likelihood of you winning goes down and down and down, and the likelihood of the revenue coming to the sports books goes up and up and up. And I think what we've seen over the last couple of months and through that latest fiscal year in Louisiana is that those sports books really do bank on those parlay profits, if you will. 70% of overall revenue in the latest fiscal year in Louisiana coming from those combo bets, Craig.
Wow, parlay bets, 70%. That's a huge number. All right, let's get to Pennsylvania. What do we got for the latest on everything in terms of revenue there?
Yeah, another fiscal year coming to an end in Pennsylvania, and their revenue dipped just slightly, just about 1%, $486.6 million in winnings for Pennsylvania sportsbooks, which was down from $492 million during the prior fiscal year. Handle, on the other hand, was up about $1 billion, $8.17 billion bet during this latest fiscal year, and that was up from $7.22 billion from the fiscal year prior. FanDuel saw its revenue drop by 2% in that latest fiscal year. DraftKings, they saw their revenue jump by about 25% in this latest fiscal year. And what really stuck out to me was Penn Entertainment and the ESPN Bet app, Craig. And I know we've talked a lot about ESPN Bet over the last several months when they made that transition from the Barstool Sportsbook last November, right in the middle of football season. And if you recall, prior to that, they announced that change was coming in August, I believe it was, last year. And then the Barstool Sportsbook brand, they stopped offering promos, and they just kind of let the players that were on there just kind of sit dormant for a little while, and not a lot of marketing activity. So once ESPN Bet took over in November, there was that rush of promotional play and whatnot. So over the last fiscal year, which again was July of 23 through June of 24, which covered about half of that. Barstool covered half of it. ESPN Bet covered the other half. But for Penn, the parent company, their revenue was down 75% in this last fiscal year in Pennsylvania. They made about $4.7 million in sports betting revenue in Pennsylvania, which was down from $19.2 million the year before, which, that full fiscal year, they were operating solely as the Barstool Sportsbook. So likely that transition likely had a good deal to do with that revenue decline. Obviously, like I said off the top, the overall market revenue was down slightly. They were a big piece of that. FanDuel a little less, but DraftKings was the big winner, 25% revenue increase in Pennsylvania over the last fiscal year.
Yeah, and again, the revenue in some of these places too, about to get a huge jump. Don't come on this show, Jim, in November telling me every state is up. I know they're going to be up. It's football season. I'm just kidding. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Greg. You too.